Uh, but we'll start. And Dallas and Fitz are on their way, clearly. But we've all got busy lives. So
Oh, that's a joke, Mike.
I would like to call the 2022 Lakeside Boys Soccer Supporter Society annual general meeting to order.
Second.
Great, thank you. And yeah.
It's gonna be a minute.
First on the agenda is to say, hey, thanks everyone for being members of our group and participating this year. 18 home games is nothing to slouch at for PFC, right? We're only guaranteed 14 to 15. So we got 18. That's not too shabby, even though it still felt a little lacking at the end.
It's always that weird scheduling.
Yeah, heavy at the front and heavy at the end. Yeah. Which might change now, but there's still a lot of rumors that the first game of the CPL season will be PFC, like at PFC versus the Angry Penis Birds. So,
This name.
oh, I am like straight face calling them that until a tifo gets done or something else. Like yeah, totally. Yes.
You know,
I think that's better.
you know me.
Or faux valor. Well, man, they really whoever did the graphic design really phoned that shit in. I'm just saying that. That's some absolute crap.
That just happened accidentally. I'm like, that's on purpose. Someone didn't like someone.
You're just straight ignoring it, being like, what? Yeah. I mean, I have zero graphic design skills, and I was still like, wow. Great. So meeting called to order. What we're going to, I had a bit of a computer failure last night, so it kind of put me in a bind for getting the agenda that I typed up printed out. So no printed agenda, but what we're going to try to accomplish today in our meeting is we're going to go through the nominations, hold elections if necessary, talk about the ombudsperson role, and sum up things that we did in the year. One of the key things that we did in the last year was create the concept of committees to sort of subdivide aspects of what we do. It worked in the way that it made our board meetings significantly shorter, or at least theoretically shorter. One of the things that we need to do to follow through on that is actually have the committees have committee meetings and not just it be a random chat room in the Discord, so that when it comes time to having board meetings and being like, what have you guys accomplished in the last month? It's not, I don't know, nothing. Let me just sum up Discord. Like we can all look at that chat room, but actually having the meeting so that we can present things and create the illusion of us actually being an organized society goes a long way. Because we are a registered society and we do have to submit paperwork to the government and all these sort of things. So, and we have a bank account now with a pile of money in it. So what I actually want to do right now is hand it over to our Secretary Treasurer to give the financial report for 2022.
Thanks, Mike. So everyone should have a sheet that has a list of our budgets and so we began 2022 with $1,686.56 in funds. That included our petty cash PayPal account. Because we got organized into society, we created a bank account this year with Van City. And so we transferred a lot of that PayPal money and loose cash into that account. So that allowed us to keep track of the monies a lot more easily. And so what I was able to do is create a spreadsheet that has all our incomes and outputs throughout the year. And that's going to be very handy going forward because we're going to be able to actually look at exactly where our money's going and where it's coming in from. So overall, 2022 was a very good year for us. You can see I've got two numbers there, one in bold with an asterisk that says 2371.55, and another one without bold that says 1381.55. I just split those up because the bold one is with the $990 we got from the TIFO t-shirt sales, which I kind of see as a one-off at this point, and it's not something we can rely on as income. Not that that's our main purpose or anything, but when you look at the difference between having the Octopus Tifo t-shirts, we had a 41% increase in our income. But without the Octopus Tifo, we actually had a decrease in our income. It doesn't mean that we're negative in any way. We obviously still have, $1,381 in the bank account or in monies without the Octopus Tifo. But it's important to note that that was kind of a one-off thing. So it's not something we can rely on. So as a result of that, this year I think we were willing to spend money on things like tailgates at a loss, because we knew we had the Octopus Tifo shirt money coming in. And we saw it as an opportunity to meet people, get people out to see what we were about. And I think that was a really good purpose for our tailgates this year. It did generate interest. We had memberships sold that way. But it's something to be mindful of going forward, that we can't just continue to run tailgates at a loss just for the sake of hopefully signing up new members. So we all, I think we're at the meetings where we decided we would include 3 tailgate meals next year with your membership. So even people who don't have a membership, they could pay their $5 at that tailgate and they would get that tailgate. These would be less expensive tailgates, things like hot dogs or something like that, hot dogs and chips, so that we can recoup our costs, or we're not worried about a loss. But if we do other tailgates that are going to be, we had some fantastic tailgates this year with amazing food. And if we're going to have more expensive tailgates, we need to find a way to recoup those costs. So that's just something to think about going forward. We have lots of great initiatives this year. I think the booth that Dallas and sorry, go ahead, Ted.
Do you want questions now or at the end?
I'll take them at the end. I'll just finish off. It's not going to be very long. We had a booth on September 30th where Dallas and I were able to actually meet a lot of people, sell some memberships, sell some stickers. So we got rid of some of that, which was really good. You can see we still have some inventory of scarves and some t-shirts from the sales that Blake set up for us online. I think that actually worked out pretty well. I don't know, Blake might want to talk to that later, but having that as not having an inventory of stock where we had to worry about eating that cost was kind of nice, that people could just order online and it came to them. I think that was a really smart idea. So when you look at the total costs, we have $40 in float. There's $30 US dollars in float as well that's in addition to that. We have $150.72 in our PayPal account, $2,139.65 in our Van City account. So our total money assets are $2,371.55. And we have no debts because Andrew is going to pick up the envelope that's to the right of him that has his name on it. And now we owe no one anything, because that's the $1,750 for the batteries. I planned that perfectly. That was perfect.
That battery thing took forever to give results.
Yeah, I know. It's so ridiculous. So just flipping the sheet over, my 2 comments on the year. One thing I want to do, obviously, is just make sure we keep our membership list updated, and we make sure we have all our membership fees collected. Because without that Octopus Tifo, let's face it, we want to make sure our membership dues are our source of income. So we want to make sure everyone's paying their dues, especially if we're going to run tailgates and your membership dues are helping pay for that, right? So that's one thing. The other thing I would suggest is anytime someone accepts any payments by e-transfer or PayPal, please let whoever is sending the transfer know to put a note about what it's for. Because I've got lots of things that are like 2117 for I have no idea what. I'm just guessing what it might be. So like if they're going to buy a scarf, tell them to say scarf in the notes. Tell them to put membership in the notes. Tell them to put sticker in the notes. And that's one thing I want to make sure is whenever we're having anything with sales, I want to make sure I have a place to record it more easily. So I think what I'm going to start doing is bringing a laptop to those tailgates that we have or any booths we have, just so that we're not like on sheets of paper and in envelopes all over, just so we can actually put it in one central place. So that's my report, and I can take questions now, Ted, if you'd like.
Thank you. Perfect. My question is regarding, you're talking about the tailgate numbers, and you've done a great job. By the way, first, let me start saying this is an excellent report.
Thank you.
I'm loving it. You've covered everything really well in detail, and what I'm going to be asking for may be too much detail, so feel free to tell me that's crazy.
Sure.
But when you talk about the tailgates being more than just a tailgate, but also an opportunity to sell merch and memberships, I noticed you haven't included any of those monies in income for the tailgate.
Yeah.
So it feels to
point.
me like in a
Yep.
way there's a little more money coming in for the tailgate than just what's put in the donation box, right?
Right, right.
So
Through membership fees and through whatever
so
else is sold.
now I don't know how we could quantify that or if we need to, but I think we just need to keep in mind that if we're looking at tailgates as a recruiting opportunity, as I think we should, and I think it's a great idea, we don't want to focus so much on just straight loss.
No,
Because
absolutely
We're still
not,
getting
yeah.
money from somewhere
Oh
else.
yeah, there's a benefit of this, right?
Okay.
Obviously, the purpose of it is to have people, and that's a very
Thank
good
you.
point. I think that speaks to what I was saying about making sure we have that clarity as to all the money that is coming in, because let's face it, during the tailgate, a lot of people are like, oh, well, I want that sticker, and they just PayPal it, and it doesn't get written down anywhere. There's a sticker that went out, and there's money that's showing up in PayPal, and that happened at the tailgate. So that's a very fine point that we did make. Let's face it. Where else did we sell scarves? Where else did we sell stickers? It was always at our tailgates or at the booth that Dallas and I used that September 30th, which was awesome, by the way. I was so happy that Pacific FC allowed us to do that because that was incredible. And Blake allowing us to use the TIFO more than once, kind of. We had it behind the booth, and there were people getting pictures. They were doing selfies with it. I mean, I think in terms of using the TIFO in the game and then having it as an opportunity where people can get a picture with it, you wouldn't believe how many people came up and were like, "This is that amazing TIFO they had up. Let's get a picture, right?" It was awesome, but it just allowed them to see what we're about, and we could talk about why we don't show the TIFO again. Because a lot of people said, "When are you going to put it up again?" Never. Yeah, you're lucky to see it here, so maybe that generates that live attendance. So that's really good. So thanks for the question, Ted. Kevin, did you have
I
another?
was just going to basically repeat what you said. That
Okay.
Having that spreadsheet will clarify that and allow us to quantify things a lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You can also look to put together another email for just tailgates.
Oh yeah.
You just want an easy way to do things?
Another spreadsheet?
Yes.
For
No,
t- oh.
email address. For
Oh, okay, yeah, for transfers. Gotcha.
Just call it tailgate and then you can see your answers.
Nice.
What goes to tailgate.
That's a good idea. Thank you. Any other questions, thoughts, comments? Leela.
Why is membership only $5?
Yeah, we can.
Start including more benefits. it's gonna be more.
Yeah.
I'll speak to that.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions for our Secretary Treasurer? Hold out the mic.
Perfect.
Thank you,
you. Yep. Cheers.
Yeah, well done. Well done.
Thank you,
Move to
Greg.
accept the report.
Yep, seconded. Okay, report from our Treasury Secretary has been accepted. Thank you, Greg. So to elaborate on some of the questions or points made in that conversation, the in-stadium booth is still potentially on the table for several times across the season with Pacific FC. One of the biggest issues that we have with organizing anything with Pacific FC is that front office staff has been playing a massive game of musical chairs with the creation of 6-5 Entertainment. Halfway through the season, a lot of their management left. There are people coming and going all the time. It's really hard to, other than Paul Byrne, it's really hard to have an idea of who actually to talk to there. So even with a lot of the work that we did with Play Proud and the action plans that were developed and how we're going to move forward are now questionable because we don't really know who we're talking with. I mean, Katie Hamilton left PFC as well, despite the fact that we went on 2 trips to talk about how to deal with these things. So, but on the plus side, Paul Byrne is an awesome and amazing person. If you have any questions for the club, he's one of those guys that is very curious and interested in sitting down with any one of us to hear what we have to say about it. And I strongly recommend you take that opportunity if it comes available. Solid dude. Don't be daunted by his resume. He's interested in how we feel about things. So meet with him if you can. So there will be more in-stadium booths. Hard to know how many and what that actually looks like until we can talk to whoever's running game day operations now. The question about why is membership $5? It started with the pandemic, right? That membership was $20. It came with a scarf. And then in 2020, all of a sudden, everything kind of hit a hold, even though membership was $20. So it decided to be I believe the board at the time decided to decrease it to $5 and not include anything. And then it rolled over into, if you paid your 2020 membership, that would also be your 2021 membership, because 2020 didn't really have any functions or anything. And then I became the president with it already being established at $5. One of the things that I took with that was to see if we could play that social experiment of saying, what if we kept it low and increased our membership base with that low thing, and find what we could include with that isn't a scarf? Because even amongst the membership, you'll hear people say, I already have too many scarves. Please stop making scarves, even though we're never going to stop making scarves. All the scarves, all of them now. Yeah. You buy a bigger house and you invest in doweling. I'm just saying, it's a solution. It's not a real solution, but it is a solution. Yeah. Build a house of scarves. But obviously that is something that we can open up discussion on and talk about changing and adjusting. I think the reality of it is that if you do what a lot of other places do, where it does include a scarf or something like that, or I've seen other supporters groups try to maintain that their membership is of people that only are really hanging out in supporter sections and not elsewhere in the stadium, or not a fan in any other way. And that's something that I think that we would want to avoid. I think it's with the way that our Constitution is written now, with us supporting Pacific FC and the Victoria Highlanders, I kind of took it as a means of just supporting local soccer, period. Just full-on Vancouver Island-based soccer, this is what we do. With no obligation to do anything for any other teams other than those two teams, but that was how I saw it and how I was trying to run it at the very least last year. With that in mind, obviously that is a topic that is coming up to be readdressed, and we'll look into how and what the likelihood or buy-in for that is going to be probably later. I still maintain that even though our four mandates in our Constitution are these: to support our clubs right now, that in brackets says Pacific FC and Victoria Highlanders, to enhance game day atmosphere, to do charitable work within our community, and to encourage activities amongst the group, right? Go bowling, do whatever, right? Have things that we do that aren't just necessarily game day activities. That is our key purpose as a society. I really love the enhanced game day atmosphere factor, because that doesn't necessarily mean that you're banging on a drum, have a megaphone in hand, waving flags for 90 minutes. You're doing whatever you can to make that game day atmosphere something that people walk away from being like, that was fun. That was a good time. Whether they were singing the songs, whether they were daunted by us singing songs, whatever the case may be. If you walked away being like, wow, I didn't know that was even a thing, great. Mission accomplished. We enhanced game day atmosphere. And I can't count the number of people that I spoke to last year that felt that way, whether they want to be members of our group or not, right? I think the thing that holds us back on increasing membership with people that felt that way is because they think that immediately that means you need to come and stand with us for 90 minutes and wave a flag or light smoke bombs or know all the players' names or all the things that gatekeeping normally does to hold people away from being supporters, the separation between casual fan and supporter. I could speak for 8 hours on what makes a supporter. We don't need to go into that. We all bring something different to that, and we all enhance game day atmosphere in our own ways. And I believe collectively we're strong that way because we all bring something different to the party and make it be a fun time. That doesn't mean that there aren't going to be off days. We all live busy and complex lives and can't attend every game. And you notice when someone isn't there because what they bring is all of a sudden lacking, no matter who we are. And no one in this room should sell themselves short if they feel that they're not contributing enough or as much as anybody else, and that do they really enhance these things. Every single person in this room, and I would posit anybody actually watching this live online right now, contributes to enhancing the game day atmosphere and support for the team, even if all you do is get online and say, good job today, boys, or what have you. But like, to sum that up again, if the thought about increasing our membership fee is something that the overall membership is okay with, that's not a problem that I have. I just feel that that will cement the key supporters, but it might turn other people away. That otherwise would be like $5. It doesn't even really get you a coffee these days anymore. So what is that? And if it gets you 3 potential tailgate meals or anything else, discounts at the tap house, what have you, right? That $5 is cheap. Blake.
Yeah, I just want to say I really support the low membership cost. I think that keeping that bar low is crucial, to people who might be on the fence. And I also am very much in support of keeping scarf separate, because you just have so many people who are almost guaranteed sales in that scarf. It's a good revenue generator that you kind of are squandering a bit if you roll it into the membership. So.
And it forces us to make sure that we have a scarf order to fill our membership numbers.
And it also, if it's rolled up, then you're you might be turning off those strange people who are not into owning too many scarves. So I think keeping them separate has benefits on both sides.
Right. Okay. Ted, I also saw a hand.
Yeah, I'm not really going to disagree with Blake exactly, because I think I agree that scarves should probably be carved out. I think that's fine. But I do think it's important that new members receive something physical that identifies their membership. Now, the traditional one is pins or patches. I think we really need to we need to up the membership fee generally. I'd like to see it up to $10 because, as you say, it doesn't really get anything. And I would like to suggest, though, that a pin or a patch come with that. Now, what's interesting is, and this may or may not apply, many places do separate initiation fees and renewals. Like, you first join a club and you pay this much, and to renew it annually, you pay this much.
Yeah, $20 to initiate,
Right.
$5 to renew, kind of thing.
And
potentially.
that takes care. Now, we don't have to include scarves in that. You could, but that means you don't have to worry about people getting the same thing every year, having to provide it.
Right.
Because the first year you get your pin or your patch or your scarf or your T-shirt or whatever, and then just to renew, you don't have to worry about it. But you can buy more if you like. And I think it's important because I got to say, one of the things that I find lacking is identity, in that we are partners with Top in the supporter section, and I think that's going actually really well. They provide noise, we add to it, we supplement it, great. But they have an identity that is clear. You see who they are. You can see who the Top members are because they all wear the shirt. Okay? Our members, you can't tell in any way, shape, or form
Who's a paid member?
who's a paid member of LSB. And it would be nice if there was something, even if it was as subtle as a pin, to show who's a member. And also, I think it gives people a little bit of pride in being a member, to have that. So I think it's important that we consider that going forward. But I think obviously that's going to be referred to the next board and whatever the committees are happening there.
Thanks, Ted. I appreciate that feedback because that is something that I think also I personally became aware of with the sale of the Octopus Tifo T-shirt, because I think every single person here must have seen people wearing that T-shirt. They're like, I have no idea who you are. and I might never see you again. Or you see, not even at game day, you might see them walking around in public with it, and you're like, who are you? Yeah, right? And which is great, but also they might not know who you are, right? And again, that's the thing where I encourage everyone here to please walk away with a handful of the business cards, because if nothing else, they're dirt cheap and they're a good way to, without wearing a pin, which I really like the idea of something as simple as a pin, something where it's like, this isn't going to change what you choose to wear on game day, but it is something that can acknowledge you. Like, not everybody's going to sew a patch on to their clothing or wear that piece of clothing every game day or what have you. But a pin is something that, no big deal, you can move it around. We'll leave it to the board, the upcoming board. But I do think that's a great idea. That means of, I think, as you said, showing pride in your association. Yeah. But not everybody's going to wear that T-shirt on game day, right? That's that thing, is that, yes, something small.
People like their
People,
jean jackets.
yeah, people are going to do different things, right? So trying to find that, I think up for debate for the new board coming in, but I definitely appreciate that, and it's something to think about. $10 might not be a deal breaker as well. One of the things that I wanted to get before upping that, and this is something that I wanted to, and I'll put a pin in that for a half second and put a slight acknowledgement here that I might be using language that supposes that I'm going to be the next president of the Lakeside Boys, but I'm just going to do that for clarity in my mind. I apologize if that is not going to be the case. The reality of it is that that's something that I want to be able to have done before the season opens, but we do have 2 or 3 months going into that, and this is always that tricky time of year where a combination of illness, family get-togethers, holiday stuff, lack of daylight, so seasonal disorders and so on. This is not really the time where everybody's inspired to take on the world. That comes after January 1st. Maybe even after March 21st, we'll see. But the reality of it is that getting to the other side of the Julian calendar goes a long way for people's motivation to take on challenges. I've just found this with people. So, but bring all the brainstorming ideas to the table, because it's always good to have things. Also, there's a tome of things that I acquired from my time in LA and Monterey in conversation with other supporters groups across the continent, and what's worked for them and what hasn't worked for them, and the problems they've run into, and problems that we might run into that we maybe naively have avoided or not thought of because it hasn't been an issue yet, but we'd be foolish to completely avoid. So these are things that I have not presented to the current board, knowing that I was like, by the time I got back from Monterey, it was one meeting, we're coming into this, we'll see, and we'll address with the new board going forward. And I've got several presentations and things I want to do, as well as doubling back on what we talked about with what I mentioned earlier with the committees, actually having a bit more of a formal structure with the committee meetings where we can have a peer consultation framework to the problems that we're trying to deal with. The only requirement for the committees is that there is one board member present in any committee. It does not have to be solely board members. In fact, I would encourage that it is not solely board members. It is the thing that you feel you bring or appreciate the most with what we do. And if that is something that sparks your interest, then boom, sit on that committee or head that committee if you're a board member. It's not really a ton of extra work. It's less work than being on the board. And even being on the board is not necessarily a ton of work if we have these committees. It's just a matter of keeping us organized so that when we show up on game day or we decide we're going to do something, we're not entirely flying by the seat of our pants. We will a little, It's hopefully there's 80% less bullshit. How about that, right? There's going to be some BS. There always is. We're human. Great. The next on my loose agenda was summing up the administrative and governance things that we did in this year. This is going to be a little dry, I apologize, but hopefully it's short. We did have a special general meeting where we decided to add the language and the position of an ombudsperson for us. I think this is something that's been a bee in my bonnet ever since becoming the president, that we needed to have means of dealing with complaints from non-members, or anything that, even if there were complaints from members, but not literally going to the elected board, so that there is a bit of an arm's length position there where people can see it from outside whatever political motivations or direction that the current board is steering our society in. Lots of other groups have it. Even for the simple act of administering elections goes a long way, because last year I ended up doing it and I didn't feel too bad about doing it because the role that I accepted as president was uncontested, but it still felt a little icky in my electoral sense, being like, it's not hands-free enough. There can be those moments where someone's like, you elected your friends, and you're like, that's not how this went. So I think that that's a good role. It is a non-voting role. You are technically a board member, but you don't get to vote in board things. If I am the next president, whoever ends up being the ombudsperson, that's something where I would make sure that they too had access and introductions to anyone in the front office of Pacific FC or any other club that we support, so that they have means of talking to other people outside of just our own organization. I don't want it to be a scenario where any conversation happening with the front office goes through me. I think that's ridiculous. I think every single one of us should have an opportunity to develop those relationships if they want, and to know who the people are, right? It just makes us a tighter family, and everybody hears different things from the same conversation. So if we all have different interpretations of what was said, then the consensus will build from there, right? Does that make sense? Yeah? So if developing a relationship with anybody at Pacific FC is something that someone is interested in and they just don't know how to approach that, please let me know, and I'll do my best to include people in those conversations. We also acknowledged, but it wasn't brought to a vote because this is something that the 2021 board did, is fill out a little bit more of our means of disciplinary action. The only thing that was in the Constitution at the time was the concept of expulsion from the group, and that seemed a little harsh. To me, it seemed that there's got to be a means of calling people in and not just calling them out, right? One loose way of describing us is a roving band of drunks. We're not necessarily tied by that, but it is something that we sometimes can be recognized as. And it's hard. Everybody has moments where they do something where they're like, I probably shouldn't have said that, probably shouldn't have done that. And in those moments, it's important to have a network of people behind you being like, yeah, what you said/did was not necessarily egregious, but maybe not great. And here's how we can do that better next time, or potentially. We're not just here to support our team on the field. We're here to support one another, right? We are a group, and part of that encouraging activities amongst the group needs to be the fact that you're like, we don't need to see it as a fraternal organization because that's sexist, but also that we are a group of people that like to cheer at soccer teams, and we do have a lot in common, whether it doesn't seem that way on game days or not. So support one another. If you are having a hard time with any aspect of it, whether it's a game day thing, even if you're having issues in your own life, reach out, find the way. We should be here for one another as well. That will only make us stronger as a group. I cannot see how it could do the opposite. open heart and open minds, and we will conquer the world. And if we can look at the World Cup right now and all the animosity and things that are coming out of that event, knowing that 4 years from now, the world is coming to North America to see the same sort of thing, let's have our shit together. Not just here on the island, but like we're representative of a soccer community. Some of us belong to other supporters groups that support the national team. We're those full-time soccer fans. People reach out to us to know what's going on in the soccer world, and they're going to turn, if they haven't already, they're going to turn things off until maybe next summer if they care about the Women's World Cup. And if not, then they're going to just turn it back on again in 2026 and look to us. And that might not be the time to be like, I don't know, we're just a bunch of infighting jerks, right? we don't have to be that way. Yeah, that's my little soapbox moment on that. So the disciplinary thing is that we have a yellow card, red card system. And that yellow card is presented as a warning. It's voted on by the board, right? The hopeful path here is that a complaint gets brought to an ombudsperson. The ombudsperson lets the board know about it, and the board decides if they want to have action on that. That's ideally the flow chart I'd like to see there. I don't know if it's going to work that way, but to me that's the ideal. And if it's extremely egregious, then a red card. The point of a yellow card is that you hold on to that yellow card for a year of the calendar date, not based on the season or anything like that. If you get called out on September 1st, then you hold that yellow card until September 1st the next calendar year. And that's really just essentially a formal written warning to be like, hey, stop being such a jerk. You stepped out of line. We're watching you now. Don't do it again. It doesn't matter necessarily why this was something that needed to be implemented so much as that we have means of doing that. And again, this is where it comes back to my don't be afraid to reach out to people. And I strongly encourage, if you're reaching out to people on this, to do it in person. The animosity online is untenable. And every one of us is guilty of that at one moment in time, I'm sure of it. So the reality of it is that if this is something that you care about, or you care about the person who may have stepped out of line, have that conversation with them. Make sure that they understand why, because that perspective might be really helpful for them. It's very easy for us to get caught in our own channels. Ted?
I would just like to suggest that we reframe what you're discussing. Instead of calling it a disciplinary code or the words you've been using, I would like to suggest we work on a dispute resolution policy. Because I think all of these things are really going to be disputes between members or about members. And I think we need to start with the idea that, exactly as you said, face-to-face, talking it out and working out. So in fact, I love the way we're framing it as within soccer terms, because I think the one thing you've talked about yellow cards, you talked about red cards, but I think we also need to talk about the stern talking to from the ref.
Agreed.
Right?
No, agreed.
And I think we need to have it sort of a stepped thing, was where you work it out yourselves. You talk to the ombudsman or something. The ombudsman has a stern talking with the person, and then if it needs to go to a yellow card or a red card, we sort of go where you're talking about. But I think if we start calling it a disciplinary code, I think people's hackles are going to get up. But if we talk about it in terms of dispute resolution, it's a little more inclusive and friendly.
I appreciate that. Yeah, thanks, Ted. Andrew?
That's a great point about terminology, like solid point. The system that...
Andrew, come up with
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a mic here.
stand on this X.
Stand on X.
There's an X on the floor under Blake's feet.
Or sit here. Cool, a very quick point. Your terminology point is very valid, very important. The system put in place with the yellow card, red card does not preclude that happening in any way, right?
Correct.
You can still have a stern talking to. And it's great that was then discussed and now it's on record, on video, on audio. But the system as it exists and put forward does not remove that. But yes, like you don't have to automatically get a yellow because making up a situation, you and I have an argument. You know what I mean? So that's all.
Thank you, Andrew, and I appreciate the reframing of the language. That to me is also one of those key things that I always like with the consensus of the group, is being like, there's going to be a better way to phrase this. Please, if you've got that language, step up. That comes down to my calling people in and not calling them out. So I appreciate you picking up on that, Ted. De-escalation is a large part of what I like to bring into this, and it's something that I try to have a conversation with security every game day, and have had conversation with RCMP members at the game. For example, at the Waterhouse game, pre-game, there was a pretty heated conversation I had with the RCMP members that were posted to watching us, because they were convinced that we were going to invade the pitch or handcuff ourselves to the net and any number of things that I was like, that's not going to happen. And I promise you, if you come in here, taser swinging from your hips, this isn't going to go the way that you think it's going to go. Like, if you see a problem, I'm easily identifiable on game days. Come say something to me and I will handle it. And if I can't handle it, you'll know. That, we've had an issue where security stormed in and said something in the game being like, you broke the protocol here that we established, that things don't generally get out of hand, because if they do, we self-police and we're on top of it. If you make a scene, the next thing you know is that there's videos online of security dragging someone out of the stands by their hair, like what happened in Halifax. That did nothing good for anyone. Right? No one has the free time in their schedule allotted to write apology emails for things that got blown out of proportion. Don't do it. The only comment that I have to make on that is that they do say it pretty clearly out loud, and I've been working for them to make these announcements. The timing of these announcements happen when the stadiums are a little bit more full. That ref abuse is a ejectable offense at game days. Please keep that in mind. There's a line. It's a very fine, blurry, hazy line, and we have beer goggles on. It is still a line. We are all humans. We're there to enjoy a game day, We're meant to go home, have fun, and want to come back the next day and not be like, wow, I just got a flare to the head, right? We also, I got to travel between a lot of different cities in Mexico and see what the supporter sections look like. We are not in a cattle pen, right? We do not have 12-foot high plexiglass cages around us at all times like other soccer supporters do on this planet. And the reason why is because we're able to contain ourselves. Please, let's contain ourselves, because the fact that you could be taking a corner and I can practically touch you with my vuvuzela, and that's not being taken away from us, is a great thing. I don't want to lose that. So we haven't pitch invaded, and that's good. Even though they let us on the pitch from time to time, we have a really solid relationship with the front office while maintaining a level of independence. I think that we should keep trying that, and not pissing them off just for game day fun, because your game day fun might fuck us up for years going forward. I've circled dispute resolution policy, and I don't even think that we have that in writing in our bylaws. I think that was just more of a board thing, but yeah, calling it that and actually writing it down is a good call. Ted, yes.
And I just want to make sure we suggest this should never be in the bylaws.
No. I don't want it to be in the bylaws.
Yeah, this should be a board policy.
Yes.
That is a separate document. Yeah. So.
Yeah, agreed. We did, the 2021 board, I did bring up that it would be good for us to have sort of a framework or flow chart for crisis management when things come up. And it's something that I still think that we should work towards, because as we grow, or as awareness of the club grows, and with our proximity to the beer garden, the opportunity for shitty behaviors can potentially increase. And I think it's really important for us to have means of how we're going to deal with that in the time, instead of us all being inebriated, being like, well, this is how I'm going to deal with it right now. No. There are sensible means of dealing with this that aren't immediately calling the cops in. And generally it involves just being a good human and diffusing the situation. It might be antithetical to what we are as a supporters group, but for me, I feel like there is plenty of conflict out in the world that we have no control over. And even though we show up at a sporting event where the entire concept is us versus them, I don't need there to be any additional unwarranted conflict. So de-escalation and trying to like make it be a grand day out is more important to me than us versus them or fuck those other guys. Right? That's just me. That might not be the popular way that other people see it, but that's what I'm bringing to the table. I think that covers the sort of governance thing. The board was increased to 9 members last year before we created the committee concept. So we don't necessarily need to have as large of a board if our committee thing flushes itself out, but it's still a work in progress. As such, I believe there are 8 people that have been nominated for positions for the board. Ted?
Before you do that, I move to accept the president's report for 2022, which you've just given.
Yeah. Seconded? Okay.
All
Yep.
in favor? There we go.
Yep. Thank you. I'd also acknowledge I am the worst at the general rules of order of conducting meetings, and so I will never be.
Just trying to help you out.
No, totally. Please, anybody with the structure there, by all means. And if I'm missing, please call me in, and we'll do better. Proceeding on to the elections and nominations concept. There are currently 9 board positions, including the president, secretary, treasurer, and vice president positions, not including the ombudsperson, which would be the 10th thing. I believe there are a total of 8 people running for board positions and 1 nominated for ombudsperson. Ted, I see a hand again.
Sorry, as point of order, the number of board positions is specified in the Constitution. It's the extra ones are extra. So what's the actual minimum number we need?
The actual minimum number, I have the Constitution here, I believe was 5?
4 or 5.
Just procedurally, we need to start with that, and then if you want to add more, we can add more.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's the quorum.
Apologies to those watching.
Yes, sorry. This
Boring
is
watching us doing this.
thrilling television right now.
Do, 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 do,
Yeah,
do, do.
Jeopardy theme.
Musical break.
Okay, the number of directors must be 5 or a greater number determined from time to time at a general meeting by the directors. The initial number of directors is 7. I'm of the mind that if anybody wants or is even remotely entertaining the idea of holding a board position and that we are not exceeding our number of existing slots, that we should go with that. That's just my feeling on it, because burnout factor is high and everyone needs to sit on a board at some point in their adult life because it is part of being a boring adult. But also it is it's one of those things, right? It gives you a level of understanding and acceptance of actually how things run, and gives you an additional level of ownership over the thing that you care about.
Don't disagree, you just need to say it for the record out loud. That's all.
Fair enough. So with that, I don't have, probably in my phone, a list of all the current people nominated and holding positions. But I believe, at last look, that there are 8 people holding positions for the board or willing to run for positions on the board, and 1 person accepting the nomination of ombudsperson.
Yep.
Jerry?
Do you want me to come up and run the election now? Or are you ready to open?
Possibly. Ted?
Yeah, I was just going to say procedurally, you need to start with the president. The other ones, then it's the board members. Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, sure. Let's bring it up here. Jerry, as someone who cares about supporter culture but is not necessarily an active member in our group, is here. Does anyone take any opposition to him as an acting electoral officer?
One question. Can you take this shit off?
I mean,
I second that motion.
I will stand in opposition to the motion because I think it visually makes sure we know he's not an insider. He's been brought in as a neutral, and he has no I think. So I love it.
There you go. Okay. Totally acceptable.
right.
I love you guys. I gotta be here to support you.
Support us, not the team. Get out.
Okay. So these are the nominees for those positions.
Okay.
That is the ombudsperson, and these are the board
And the
members.
boards at large. So we're gonna start with the top one and we'll just work
Yeah.
our way down. So, all right. Hello, everyone. I'm Jerry, as you all know. So we're gonna open up nominations for the first position, which is president. So currently we have Mike, who has submitted his name as president. Is there any other nominations for president, including online? I'll give you a few minutes to make sure that people in the chat are allowed to engage in this one. I'll ask for a second time. Is there any other nominations for president? I'll ask a third and final time. Is there any other nominations for president? Seeing none, the nominations have been closed. Mike, do you accept your nomination to be president?
I do.
Okay. So seeing that there's no opposition, then he's acclaimed as our president. So then we'll move off to the second nominations, which is for the vice president position. So currently we have Andrew has submitted his name to be vice president. Okay, so his name has been accepted for nominations. We'll get to the other specs. So is there any other nominations from the floor for vice president? Second time, is there any other nominations for vice president? Third and final time, is there any other nominations for vice president? Seeing none, Andrew, do you accept your nomination as vice president? I do. Okay, then you are acclaimed. Up next.
I promise a peaceful transfer of power when it's figured out.
When he gets red carded, right? We've already discussed this. Okay. There's a call coming in just for us on this issue. I'll have to do a little later. Next nominations that opens up is Secretary Treasurer. We have Greg that has put his name forward or has been nominated. Is there any other nominations for Secretary Treasurer position? Second time, is there any other nominations for Secretary Treasurer? Third time, is there any other nominations for Secretary Treasurer? Seeing none, nominations are closed. Greg, do you accept your nomination?
I do.
Okay, thanks. Then we have the ombudsman. We have Steve. Is there any other nominations for omnibus?
I nominated Ted. You can kind of, okay, all right.
Okay. Is there any other nominations for omnibus? Third and final time, is there any other nominations for omnibus person? Seeing none, nominations are closed. Steve, I assume, has accepted?
Yeah.
Okay.
He did. What's Steve's last name? Hemphill.
Okay.
Sorry? Hemphill. Hemphill. Okay, thank you. Just for Hot Mountain.
So that closes all the nominations for the executive. We then move to board members at large. So this is kind of an interesting one. We have LSB Papa. Jermaine, okay. We have Leah. Leela, sorry, I am horrible with names. You're going to have to kill me later. Kevin. Ted. And then 1 second here, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Still 2 more open positions for the slate of board member at large.
We're gonna nominate Phil.
Okay. Is anyone else? Is there any other nominations for yourself? Okay. How do you spell your name?
C-A-M-E-R-1.
Thank you. Yeah.
I do believe there was one blank nomination for everybody that was on board. Yeah. He nominated to be back on it by somebody. It was, yeah. Some will decline there. Yeah, we got to be
Okay.
I'd like to point out that Jacob on the live stream would like to nominate Blake.
Blake?
Okay. But he doesn't want it.
So, you can always nominate him back. You can always nominate him back.
You mean the guy that runs the other supporters group?
So for the second time, is there any other nominations? Third and final time, is there any other nominations for board member at large? Seeing none, the acclaimed list will be, all the members that have been put their name for it have been acclaimed with,
Everybody individually.
if we accept it, you're right. Great. So, I made notes here.
Make an initial caveat, Jermaine not being present at this thing has accepted his nomination.
Okay.
You answer when you ask the question.
Layla?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yep.
Ted?
With thanks to my nominator, I will decline the nomination. Thank you.
Phil? Cam? Okay, so then you have 5 board members with 2 open positions. Congratulations, everyone.
Yes. Question from the Secretary Treasurer.
So just a point of clarification, since we've now nominated our officers, we will need to get signing authority for our vice president, our new vice president, and we'll have to switch over that signing authority to the bank.
Yeah. So
Just so that's in the minutes.
no. So Andrew will talk about that before the next board meeting, and I'll make sure to get that set up at the bank. With that in mind, we probably have to take your card back and I'll find out what that looks like, and then we'll go with that. And then we obviously have to submit everything to the BC registration, BC registries, BC Society registries. Question.
I would like to make a thank you to Jerry for coming in and helping us.
Yes. Thank you, Jerry, for coming in and helping us run our election. John.
Can we stop calling the soccer and call it by its real name?
I believe that they are both shortened versions of association football, with making them both valid. It's not our fault that we are a colony of wankers. This is just how it goes. We will bastardize our language.
I think John really wants to make it a motion that we call it FitBar.
Yeah, Fitbar. Yeah, Fitbar. But bringing it back to this, so I will be in conversation with Steve Hill with the role of ombudsperson and what that looks like, and so that he understands what our language in our Constitution implies for that position. I will make sure to have the transition regarding financial affairs between our past Vice President, Ryan Airwood, and our incoming Vice President, Andrew Fitzsimmons, is handled as need to be with the bank. And to everyone who has served on the Lakeside Buoys board in the past cycle and in previous cycles as well, I'd like to thank you personally for caring about the Lakeside Buoys, and hope that your future involvement doesn't wane even though you're stepping away from a role in governance. So thank you to everyone who will be sitting and has sat, and thank you. Exactly. Yeah. Free hot dog at the. I'm not sure if there is any other official business that I had for this, but I want to open it up to the floor as an annual general meeting for anything that people want to talk about. I see your hand.
Mine, I already spoke to you about. It was just that Jake had brought up the concept. I don't know if that fits in of having a away game committee or whatever.
So
If we don't discuss it, it's fine. I just want it verbally.
Yep, acknowledged. So our list of various committees is growing as we find other facets to organize ourselves. One of the things that was loosely set up last year but turned into a thing was an away day channel, but / committee. And now that we have a rival that we can travel to and sleep in our own beds that night, it actually makes it being something that is much more real to talk about. Doesn't involve flights. So there will be, if it isn't existing right now, I will create an away day committee channel, and yeah, I believe it does exist, and that one of the things that we will be dealing with in the next board meeting is making sure that there is at least a board member assigned per committee, and so that the committees can run as they need to. Question from the floor, Ted.
Yeah, just regarding the committees and the structure, obviously the first meeting of the new board will determine what committees we keep, which ones we add. That's great, but I would like to ask that board to make a clear policy on access to those Discord channels, because from my perspective, I think we need to clarify who should be able to post to those committee channels and who should be able to read them. Now, I don't know if Discord is capable of doing read-only.
It is.
Because I think, because I would like to see committee channels only be posted by committee members, and then, but I think for transparency's sake, if people want, we should allow anybody to be able to read it.
I agree in principle. The way that things have been set up with Discord currently, it's not to say it can't change, but that the basic channels and like the link to join our Discord server is on our website page, and therefore open to anybody, not just members, to join. Because of that, there is a part where it's useful to have a section of chat and open dialogue where it is freely open to members of the public, regardless of whether they're a member of our supporters group or theoretically a member of an opposing supporters group. And I just want to put that forward, being like, if you open it up to the public, it's open to the public. That means Elon Musk, right? He's not joining us. I don't fucking care. The reality is the public is the public. Determining that next level of like, I think what we could do is create another role between just anyone and paid members, and then we also have created roles for committee members as well as board members as well as admin. So one second, with that, if we create that additional role of paid members, then paid members get to view anything other than potentially board discourse, but then they are free to see anything that's happening in committee things. A large part of it was a mid-season, hey, let's implement this, throw it to the wall, see what sticks, and then run it up in a meeting like this to be like, is that working, what's not working, how to proceed. So I appreciate that feedback, Ted, and I think that's good too, because there are people that weren't sitting on the board that became committee members last year because it made sense, but also finding the way to be like, are you seeing and able to contribute to the committees you want? Are you seeing committees that you have no care for? Just streamlining and actually managing the technical logistics behind the Discord server so that it works in the way as intended. But great point, Ted. Andrew.
Trying to keep things super brief. I have no issue if you want to like pay gate committees or whatever. That's fine. I just want to make sure it's on record. I think that the Discord should stay open. Like we had that gentleman from Chicago, Pat. I think he officially even joined the group.
He is a paid member of the Lakeside Boys.
So if you're listening, hi Pat. But like I think that's great. That's organic growth. That's where you're gonna get the weird members. And by weird, I just mean non-local members. Not that they're weird. And I think that's very important.
Probably are, but it's okay. We will.
I'm not. That's on the president, not me. But I think that's really important that we do keep the Discord open to the public, even if they're going to put some paywall to other things. I think that's really, really important.
I agreed. Not everybody uses the Facebook forum, and as we've seen from time to time, the Facebook forum of Victoria soccer supporters / Lakeside Boys that was run by LSB TV, that is, every board member, I think, has means of moderating that channel. But we've seen that just like any, completely open to the public forum can get rife with conflict from time to time, and at some point someone needs to step in and moderate or put a pin or become the adult in the room and say, hey, what you just said was problematic. I'm just going to leave it at problematic because I don't have the time and or the patience to actually go through individual things that people have done that have caused us to get here. Are there any other topics that the membership present would like to discuss at our annual general meeting? Ted?
I would like to provide notice of motion that I move that we remove all references to Victoria Highlanders Football Club from our Constitution. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so a motion has been made to remove the term Victoria Highlanders and anywhere where it's stated in our Constitution. I'm going to put it to vote. I'd like to leave. No, okay, sorry.
Point of order.
We
can't
cannot
change
vote
the
right now.
Constitution. I can't vote now.
Yeah. We would like to set up a special general meeting to be able to handle this. It is an ongoing point of contention that goes one way or the other all the time, and it is time that we actually put a vote to the membership instead of a loosely made poll. I am going to suggest that this is something that we're going to aim after the next board meeting, that this special general meeting will happen sometime before the end of January. That is something I'd like to aim for, so that it is something that happens long before the season starts, but gives us enough time for for people to understand what's going on, ask questions, open it up, and I will create. I mean, we can maybe keep it in the Highlanders, the existing Highlanders channel. There's no need to create a new channel on that for anyone to present things one way or the other. I would highly recommend and encourage that people keep it civil and understand that everyone might be coming from a far away. And also, do not treat this topic as a real-time argument in Discord. It is across the internet. People have lives. They might not be willing or able to argue in real time. If you want to actually have a real-time civil debate with anyone on this, meet for a beer, have a conversation in person, talk it out. But if you just kind of throw insults at one another online, it's not productive and it causes strife and conflict in a group that is already small in numbers. Please don't do that. That is my personal call for some civility on the topic. That's your own business. That's your own business. But as someone with admin privileges on our Discord channel, I have better things to do than to remind adults to be adults. I really do. So please, just try to remain civil and understand that no matter how important this feels to you, this is an academic conversation about what you feel supporter culture means.
Keep Mike sane. Keep Mike sane.
Seriously, I honestly believe that the biggest stress and grief on this has been put on my shoulders, and it's self-imposed. I'll be the first to admit that. That's me being like, I don't want to be the guy steering the car that kicked the Highlanders out of the passenger seat while I was driving it. I don't want it to be seen that way. It's come up that no one's really seeing it that way, which makes me feel good about it, but I also just want to acknowledge that to the camera and out in the world, saying, look, I've done my best to make sure that I've argued in good faith for reasons on both sides of where it's helpful and where it's not helpful, and met with a lot of people and had very long conversations with members and non-members alike on this topic. What I will say is, if there's anyone watching this or in attendance of this meeting and you feel strongly one way or the other on this, this is going to be a discussion for existing members. $5 is cheap for your say in this. So if you actually care about this and you're going to be talking about this for the next 40 years, pay your goddamn $5, become a member, have your say in it, and then we can move forward with this with like legit numbers instead of it being something where we just have to listen to you complain about it for the next 40 years even though you're not a member of our society. Ted.
And just a quick point of order to double down on that. Remind everyone: the moment this meeting ends, your membership expires.
It is 100% true. The Greg is accepting the money right now and going on that. We will be resetting those numbers later on today on our membership database for who is paid and who is not paid. What your membership includes will be subject to the next board meeting of including a PIN or other means of this, and we'll go forward on that. But thank you for bringing that up. I don't recall seeing an open letter to all members letting them know that, but that is something that is easily done with the membership database system that was set up by past President Jason Armand. Thank you very much for that. Anything else from the floor right now? Like?
Okay. Who schedules a meeting at lunchtime and doesn't provide lunch?
Exactly.
Well,
all right, thank you. Motion, this 2022 annual general meeting of the Lakeside Boys Soccer Supporters Society has been adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for attendance. Thank you, everyone attending online. Thank you, everyone who is watching not live for participating in local soccer governance. We appreciate you and your time. Adjourned.
Thank you for watching this program.